Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
I'm Michael Burke, and this is Money Talks. Business show. I'm business reporter Michael Burke, and today we have the privilege of being with Leo Bose from Case IH brand of Case New Holland. Leo, I appreciate you being on the show. And we're going to be talking about about the Case technology that has been sort of evolving over the past few years in the tractors. I wanted to kind of set the stage a little bit. Case IH is a brand. Case New Holland, or CNH, is the company. Why don't you explain where the IH part comes from? Everybody in Racine knows where the Case part comes from.
That's a great question, because really the heart and heritage of Case IH is really two companies. So J.I. Case, which was founded here in Racine back in the late 1800s, had an opportunity back in the middle 90s, so 1985. International Harvester at the time was on the decline, and J.I. Case was able to purchase those assets and form Case IH at the time. And that's what we have today.
Mm-hmm. And so that's of course, the red brand with the tractors, like the Magnum tractors that are made just outside of Racine. And you also make New Holland tractors in this plant. Those tractors that are made there, they're not made anywhere else in the world, correct?
Well, when you take a look at our manufacturing footprint, we have it around the world, so it's 37 locations that are manufacturing Case IH and New Holland products, so CNH products. Now, when we take a look at specifically what's produced here in Racine, Wisconsin, is really our Magnum line, as well as that New Holland complementary product that is in that horsepower range. Now, we do have one other facility in Brazil that's actually producing the Magnum tractor.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, though, this facility here out of Racine is really getting some milestones. And when I say getting some milestones, the Magnum tractor is over 25 years in production. What does that mean? That tractor's been in production, over 140,000 units have been produced. So for our producers throughout North America, they're really looking for that productivity and maximum uptime that really those tractors offer. And the employees here based out of Racine are really putting that quality and reliability in that product.
So if a farmer in the Ukraine buys a Case Magnum tractor, where is it likely to have been made?
So typically we take a look at those tractors that would be produced or brought into those other regions. It's probably produced here in Racine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The changes in the engines over the last few years have been pretty significant, actually. And I did a story a couple of years ago when you guys were facing an EPA deadline. That was January 1st of 2011, and that new rule was coming in. It was phasing in of the Clean Air Act, correct? Of what year was the Clean Air Act?
So Clean Air Acts are back in the late 70s, but the Clean Air Act then put into motion other standards, and you're exactly right. All manufacturers, and we say we all had to comply by what we call the tier ratings. And what the tier ratings were is really bringing various pollutants down within that exhaust stream. So really it started back in 1996 with Tier 1, mm-hmm. and back in 2010 we went to Tier 4A, and you're exactly right.
Each time you're chopping away at the bad stuff.
And so the manufacturers had to look at innovative ways to really meet that regulation that the government was setting forth.
And specifically 2 years ago approximately, you had to hit much tougher limits on soot and nitrous oxides. Nitrous oxides, of course, are bad because they lead to nitric acid in the atmosphere and thus acid rain.
Yep.
And you actually did it very successfully. Talk about the technology that you used to do that.
Correct. So at the time in 2010, we launched our whole new lineup of Magnum tractors as well as Steiger tractors and ushered in new technology for us. and that technology is called selective catalytic reduction, or SCR technology. So we treat the exhaust after the combustion process. So that allows us to really fine tune that engine for maximum performance or power, but then really meet that governmental regulation after that step.
And let's talk about the two. You could have taken one of two broad paths. You could have gone with SCR, and which you did, or you could have gone the other way. Talk about the way you didn't go.
Yeah, when you take a look at the depth and breadth our engineering team brings, and there's really two paths, and you're exactly right. The first one is exhaust gas recirculation. So that means by nature, by definition, bringing that exhaust gas back into the engine to really reduce the particulate matter. So the other
Just by burning it.
Just by burning it.
Mm-hmm.
So the other technology that...
What are the problems with that?
So what that does is actually it brings in less oxygen, because if you think of a campfire, when you get the campfire really rolling, you have a lot of good heat, you have a lot of good flames. What happens is exhaust gas recirculation is taking that exhaust or that campfire smoke and bringing it now back into that campfire, which really doesn't create a lot of heat and really doesn't create, at the end of the day, a lot of power for that tractor. So what we looked at was proven technology called selective catalytic reduction that was actually launched in Europe back in 2006. So with our sister company, we take a look at FPT technology, Iveco trucks. We were able to take that within our product and really fine tune that engine for maximum performance, but not bring any exhaust gas back into the engine.
Let's talk about where SCR came from too. It was being used by your majority owner, Fiat, in commercial vehicles. So Fiat had this technology, knew it worked in commercial vehicles and certain off-road applications. You guys said, why not put that in the tractors? So you're not bringing the exhaust back into the engine, so tell what does happen to the exhaust.
So what happens is in SCR technology, we can tune that engine. So what that means is the particulate matter, we bring that down because we're using all the fuel, because our customers want to make sure that the money they're putting in that fuel tank that's being used is used to its fullest. So what that means, we can dial that engine for maximum power performance. What happens in our nitrogen oxide content comes up. So we use a second fluid called diesel exhaust fluid, which is a urea-based product, and we inject that into the exhaust stream after the combustion process. So what it does, it splits those nitrogen oxides into simple nitrogen and water components. So it's better for the environment. Actually, the air that's actually coming out of the engine is almost cleaner than what's probably going in.
Wow, yeah. And in the alternative you didn't, in reburning the exhaust gases, that takes extra diesel. And this does not, correct?
It takes a little extra diesel, but what it does, though, it reduces the service intervals as well, because if you think about that dirty exhaust gas coming back into the engine air intake, that can tend to work its way past the piston, down the rings, down into that crankcase, that engine oil. And the service intervals are reduced with exhaust gas recirculation. So by using SCR technology, we've been able to actually lengthen out our service intervals up to 600 hours. So that means more money in the pocket for the producer, because they can actually work longer between the amount of time they actually have to look at servicing that tractor.
Mm-hmm. And it's a more efficient engine in the end, right?
It's efficient and simpler. It's, when you look at our engines, there's really the emissions components are after the combustion process. They're not attached to the engine. So a customer opens that hood up and sees that, hey, there's the engine, there's the block. They really connect with it. And that's really, over the last 2 years with Tier 4A technology, having the chance or opportunity to drive and talk with customers, that's one thing they've said. It's very simple technology. They understand the power performance, but they also understand that they get fuel efficiency gains. Because we've had customers say, you know, at a minimum, I'm seeing a 10% efficiency gain, and some are saying 12, 18%. So our initial gain was targeted at 10%, and we definitely hit that.
Now, what did it do? How much did that slash nitrous oxides buy?
So at the time, the standard was at a 60% rate. When we take a look at
60% of what?
60% of what they had to bring down to the level. So if we have a nitrogen oxide content, they had to bring it down 60% at that first initial rating. Now, the next step here in 2014 is Tier 4B, which is another 80%. So the window even gets smaller. So manufacturers have to look at innovative ways. And quite frankly, we're finding out that SCR technology is going to be used by pretty much everybody in the industry to meet this strict standard.
And I find it interesting that your big competitor, John Deere, for the 2011 standards went the other way, exhaust gas recirculation, and now they're doing the same thing you guys are doing to meet the last one.
Yeah, so we kind of took that proven path forward. So some of they thought maybe they could get within that window as 2014 evolved, but I think the other manufacturers are finding out that it's going to be very tough compliance to fit in that. Plus our depth and breadth and our innovative technology allows us to do that.
Now, by the way, where does this, what was the name of the fluid that you hit the exhaust with that neutralizes it?
So diesel exhaust fluid.
And where does that come from on the tractor?
So it's a separate reservoir that's on the tractor, and for the viewers and listening to this, it's really I would fill that diesel exhaust fluid tank 1 time to 2 times the fill of the fuel tank. So I fill the fuel tank twice, and I would fill up my diesel exhaust fluid tank. So typically it's about a 12 to an 18-gallon tank.
And do farmers typically keep a tank of that on their farm?
They do a couple different things. They keep it on their farm. They have a mobile service fluid station that's on a trailer, for example. So basically every other day, maybe they're filling that diesel exhaust fluid.
So it's not a big problem to obtain that?
Actually, no. Any of our Case IH dealers throughout North America, any of the truck service stations that are located just out on the interstate, you can go out to the Petromart, and actually they have it right on the nozzle that you can get it bulk.
And then lastly, that chemical reaction, are you spraying the diesel exhaust fluid into the exhaust stream? Or
so
what?
The diesel exhaust fluid is sprayed variable rate into the exhaust stream. And what that does is works with a catalyst, just like on your automobile, you have a catalytic converter. And what it does then is take that urea that's in that diesel exhaust fluid and split those nitrogen oxides after it goes through the catalyst. So we look at a couple different things. I say the system, it monitors what the actual humidity as well as the nitrogen oxide content that's not only coming into the air intake, but it is going out. So then it variable rates adjust. So we can put in 1.5 to 2.5%, but typically it's around a 2 to 3% injection rate.
Before we get to some of the other capabilities of your tractors, I wanted to give people an idea of the size and scope of the kinds of tractors we're talking about. What sort of horsepower ranges are we talking about with the tractors made there? What sort of price tags and what kind of applications? Can you link the various sizes to types of farming that's done with the tractors?
That's why you can see a smile on my face, because it's all about that power. When you take a look at really sizing up tractors, and they're versatile, and I say Case IH gives us a 1-2 punch for producers out there. Let's talk about horsepower ranges. About 150 horsepower that's out of our small unit here within Racine, Wisconsin.
Can I jump in and ask
Yep.
you, I haven't even heard numbers, but what's the typical horsepower of a car on the road these days, or a pickup truck or something? Do you have any idea for comparison's sake?
Well, depending upon what they're doing and fine tuning, but when you take a look at it, 350 to 380 horsepower to 440 horsepower, so it kind of gives you a little bit of range, but that range though is what they call peak. And when you take a look at our tractors, it's all about getting that usable horsepower down to the ground as well. So efficiency when we talk about efficient power. But so the ranges of tractors about 150 horsepower all the way up to 340 horsepower. And the ranges of price, and you can go on caseih.com and take a look at. We have a price building. You can actually build a tractor. It's kind of fun and unique because you can see all the accessories just like you have today. In fact, we have leather seats within the cab. So you can take a look at the pricing, but typically a base unit, 150 horsepower tractors, we have about $190,000. And we take a look, and that's list price, and it moves up to about $280,000 on our top model.
So what type of farmer is going to buy the one at the lowest level horsepower?
A lot of our dairy livestock operation, they're looking for that tractor to be versatile. We can put front end loaders on that so they can actually move bales of hay for the dairy operations. Also, that customer's looking to have that fit in a row crop condition. What does that mean? Is actually our plants are spaced into rows so they can fit that tractor
like
down.
Corn.
Yep, you bet.
What about a mid-range tractor? What kind of farmer would buy one?
So mid-range, we take a look around this southeastern Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. Really that customer that's going to use that tractor not only for tillage work, but planting, also seeding, and any fall grain cart, taking that harvested grain off the field to the semi-truck.
And at the upper level?
Upper level, we get out of the Great Plains. You take a look at Western Canada, the provinces. Out there, it's all about how much land can I cover in a given time frame. So for them, it's all about productivity, acres per hour. So they're looking at that higher horsepower range.
Now let's talk about some of the cool gadgetry on these tractors. You use a term called precision farming. What is precision?
Our precision farming started back in 1994, and it's actually called AFS, Precision Farming, Advanced Farming Systems. That's really the acronym. So at the time, really our producers were trying to figure out when they plant a given hybrid or seed in the ground, they wanted to look at real time what the yield implications of putting that seed into the ground was. So in the fall harvest time frame, we have a yield monitor that's in the combine cab. And that then spurred into using global positioning.
So that's telling you like how many bushels per acre?
Yeah, exactly. How many bushels per acre, so they could really then open book and take a look at one seed variety against the next and see, okay, which one performed. Because now they're almost getting down to the doctor level, I call it prescription. And they're trying to prescribe how they actually want to put more seeds in the ground, or what do we want to do with fertilizer? Do we want to put more or less?
Because you don't necessarily just want to put more seeds and more fertilizer, because there's a point of diminishing returns, right?
Yeah, it's just the title of your show, money talks. And really our producers are looking at the return on investment and really that input cost. They need to manage those highly volatile input costs.
Talk about the tracking system. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, so we use GPS technology, same as what's in the automobiles today. And actually we can get down to sub-inch accuracy. So we actually know the position of that vehicle within the field. So what does that mean for a producer? Why would they want that? We call it the picket fence approach. That means that we want to snap a line or a grid within the field, and then we want to replicate that line throughout the field. So what that means is that the producer would actually almost get another row of corn or soybeans. So that means more money in their pocket, because now they're maximizing that ground that they can put that seed in.
So like if they say, I want to have my corn rows 30 inches apart, as you mentioned, you know it's going to be 30 inches and not 27 here and 34 there and stuff like that.
I think I'm smarter than the machine, right? So we have a lot of producers say, well, no, I can get it closer. Well, when you get sub-inch accuracy, it allows our producers to make sure they're maximizing that investment.
So how often does the driver touch the steering wheel?
That's a great question. Actually, once they set that AB line, they can actually be hands-free as they go down the field. So the cell phone, or they can be looking at what the machine is doing with the planter. The only operator interface that they have to do is then when they come to the end of the field, we want the operator to control. So they would just turn on the headlamps, and then it gets to the next line, and then it follows that.
And it tells them, okay, this is your starting point then for the next row?
It tells them, and they can see it. It just populates, auto-populates on their AFS Pro 700 display.
Wow. Are only the big grain farmers using that, or are a lot of Wisconsin farmers using that too?
So if we look at it through the Midwest, Wisconsin, whether it be low, medium, or high producers, they really see that return on investment of giving those as extra returns. So we see a lot of producers grabbing that technology.
What are some of the cab comforts that are available?
Cab comforts, where do I start? Automatic temperature control, just like we have in the vehicles today. AM, FM, stereo, cassette. For us, our producers use it as their mobile office, and they're continually looking at grain prices. They're trading grain. They have multiple workers that are in other vehicles. So for us, we have Bluetooth capability, just like we have in the automobile. So when you look at it, it's really their office, and we have a multi-control arm which is right on the right-hand side, and that controls basically all the functions of the vehicle. So our Case IH Magnum tractor, basically they have everything within one handle that they can operate. And they have a screen called the AFS Pro 700 display, just like in your automobile. They get all the vehicle parameters that come right up on that.
You hear a lot about difficulty in borrowing, and these are not cheap machines. So what methods are farmers using to make these purchases? $200,000 purchase or whatever it might be?
Well, that's a great question. They're using local lending markets for that as well. So when they look at it, some of them are very well capitalized. So some of them are, they do have the cash that they can actually fund them themselves. But through CNH, we offer our financing division as well. So one of three levels there for those customers that are really looking at, purchasing equipment.
And just before we finish here, I know the ag numbers have been really strong in all the CNH earnings reports. Construction not so much, but ag is making you guys a lot of money. So what are some of the drivers of those successful sales besides all the, you know, the great product itself, but what are some of the factors out there in the world that you think that are helping you guys?
I think it really boils down to two areas. One, it's commodity prices. Commodity prices are on the upswing. When that happens, our producers are looking for that extra edge. So they have a little extra money that they want to look at investment. And where do they invest? They want to look at their investment to create a return on their investment. So what they're trying to do is either that's equipment and or assets, whether that's buildings or taking a look at grain leg storage assemblies. So for them, it really boils down to those two areas. So for them, though, is they're looking at cost per acre. So what does it actually cost me to put the seed in the ground and actually take it out at the end of the harvest? And there's somewhere in between that they want to try to narrow that cost of production.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention there are a lot of hungry people in this world and a lot of people in this world.
Well, close to, when we look at 10 billion that's going to be on this face of the earth is really, that's unique for our product coming out of here, out of Racine, Wisconsin. And really, we take a look at the late 1800s, Jerome Increase Case, having this, right by Lake Michigan as a great port, but to get our product that's going to be over 10 billion people, it's just something that over my 20-year career with Case IH, I just one of those things I look forward to and how we're going to make that next step.
And we look forward to it also. Thanks a lot, Leo Bose from Case IH for being with us today. I'm business reporter Michael Burke. You've been watching Money Talks. Thanks to our producer, Greg Schaefer. And please remember, Money Talks. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you.